guys. We are live. Garage Goons, episode 18. Welcome to the most trash show on YouTube. Please forgive the dry running in the background. It's part of the ambiance. Most trash show on YouTube, so keeping it consistent here. UFC 274. I want to jump right into it. It's been a while. We haven't discussed fights in a while. We haven't discussed much of anything in a while. I wanted to just kind of beef up some content. I have some really good ideas coming. Some, greatest rapper living list, because the game put his Facebook, and I thought that was kind of interesting. I like some of the guys. Yeah, most of the guys actually I liked on his list. So I'm going to bring some of my hip hop buddies back in here and discuss that. But let's get right into it. UFC 274, Charles Oliveira fights Justin Gaethje, Michael Chandler fights Tony Ferguson, and Thug Rose. Oh, man. What can I say about UFC 274 that it was a lot of controversy. Thug Rose, Carl Esparza. I want to get into Charles Oliveira first. That's probably why you clicked this video. Charles, the best non-champ ever. I thought it was interesting with the weight cut. Let me first get into the weight cut. There's a lot of controversy there. I saw a lot of people saying, come on, it's 0.5 pounds. The scales were off. A lot of guys said the scales were off. Chael Sonnen has a really good breakdown of like the intricacies of rules and who makes them, and whether or not him getting stripped of the belt was fair, or like a standard bylaw that happens if you miss weight as a champion. So go check out that guy. Chael Sonnen had a lot of really good breakdowns and interesting insight to fights as a guy that's fought professionally for both the UFC and Bellator. So my whole thing, firstly, on the weight cut is he was 0.5 over. Now, Charles claims that he came in the night before and he was on weight and he hadn't consumed anything, water, food, nothing, the whole day following that, and then steps on the scale and he was over. I have a couple of thoughts on this. I think anyone who's used a scale before knows that, like, I have a home scale, right? It says one thing. Sometimes I'll step on my home scale, it'll say 200. Then I'll go to the gym having nothing in my system, and that scale will say 202. That's a whole 2 pounds off. I don't know which one is more right, but generally we use scales as a tool to know about where our weights are at. I mean, if you go to the doctor's office, whatever, they're not calibrating that scale every single time somebody steps on it. They're not making sure it's perfectly balanced out. So my thoughts are this. Justin Gaethje made weight on that same scale. Okay? So however you want to spin it, if you're the champion, I believe you need to make weight. And a lot of people, what they don't understand is it's not like there's time slots. Like, okay, we're going to have this guy come in, then we're going to have that guy come in. The weigh-in you see on TV where they step on the scale most of the time in their clothes and stuff, that's not the official weigh-in. That's like hey, this guy made weight, he's going to step on the scale. It's kind of like a joke. They don't actually weigh the guy. They just say what he actually weighed in at, and then they do the face-off, okay, day before. So there's two, and that's after the guys hydrate, because they don't want you looking at two zombies out there and how depleted these guys are. You can see the official weigh-ins. These guys look sucked up. They all look tired. They look miserable. That's the real weigh-in, okay? Nobody looks super stoked on weigh-in day, okay? Unless you're Frankie Edgar and you just don't cut weight, all right? Like, for the most part, guys are cutting crazy weight, and they look disgusting, and they look tired, and they look beat down. So here's my thing, okay? If he weighed himself on that same scale, right, the night before. So he's like, okay, it should be the same the next day. Why, if you were on weight, would you? Because remember, guys, these guys are dehydrated, depleted, no minerals, no water in their body, no food. Okay. Why on earth would you wait to the last minute of official weigh-ins where these guys have a 6-hour, sometimes 12-hour window to make weight? And you don't just get one try. It's not like you step on scale and that's it. That's what you saw with Charles Oliveira, because he chose to show up with under 30 minutes left of the window to weigh in. Why would you not, if you were on weight and you were so sure of yourself, get there first thing in the morning? And some of you guys, whoa, maybe you wanted to sleep in. Okay, fair. Just get up, weigh in, drink a bunch of water if you're on weight, drink a bunch of Gatorade, a Pedialyte, whatever you got to do. Maybe have like a nice low-carb lean meal just to get some fuel back in your stomach, and then go back to sleep. Okay? If you do it first thing in the morning and you think you're on weight, which if you believe, why wouldn't he have done it first thing in the morning? It just doesn't even make sense. Now you have all day to rest, rehydrate, eat, recuperate, and regain back the weight that you cut out. Because most of these guys before cuts are like single digit body fat percentage, and then after cuts they're just like close to death. That's the cold hard reality of MMA and basically most combat sports that have, weigh-ins. So something to consider. Why, if he thought he was on weight, why would he want to be miserable as long as possible the day of weigh-ins? That doesn't make sense to me. I've mentioned this a few times. I hate to toot my own horn. I have cut weight before, and I have done amateur mixed martial arts as well as some amateur kickboxing matches. And it sucks. It sucks so bad. I hate cutting weight. To this day, I hate the sauna because of cutting weight. I couldn't wait to get on the scale, man. The second I got off, I was eating probably all the wrong shit, to be honest. But drinking, eating, I didn't have anything for 2 days. 2 days, I just starved myself. So I wouldn't, if they said, hey, Tyler, do you want to just weigh in later today? I'd be, hell no, get me on as soon as possible. I'm hungry, man. So it doesn't make sense to me that Charles would wait till last minute, then blame the scale for being off. Okay, let's say he's telling the truth. Fine. I still don't think that you can call him a champion, because part of your job description as a champion is to make sure, regardless, that you make weight. I mean, to my knowledge, nobody else missed weight. A lot of guys said, yeah, the scale was a little off from the day before or whatever. So apparently everyone just has their go at this thing. And imagine all these different guys, all different weight classes jumping on and off this thing. Yeah, it might get a little uncalibrated or decalibrated, whatever the word is for that. So you have to account for a half pound here and there. It's a championship fight. It's the only time where you can't weigh a pound over, okay? Every other fight you can weigh a pound over. If it's a championship fight, both guys have to weigh in at the exact weight or under. That's the rules, man. I don't make them. So I'm not taking anything away from his performance, but I will say that if you're a professional, and he likes to throw that word around a lot. Oh, I'm a professional. If you're a professional, you make the weight. Simple, plain and simple. Guys don't miss weight. Do what you got to do. Hey, man, if do the DC pushing down on the towel trick, whatever you got to do, man. Throw up, make yourself throw up. Whatever you got to do, you got to make that weight, man. And he had 30 minutes left. He was unwilling, or maybe he tried, but maybe he was just too dry and couldn't get sweaty again. But a half pound, you can pee that out, you can shit that out, you can sweat that out, you can throw that up, however you want to do it. But the fact that he was unwilling to try to, do everything he could to try to lose that pound again, to me says, maybe he had an idea that he was close to, like his limit, or he was at his limit. And I also bring this to you because this is not the first time he's missed weight. It'd be one thing if he never missed weight his whole career. He was always on target every single time, and then now this is the first time. This guy has a history of missing weight. So I'm not going to give him the benefit of the doubt in this scenario and just say, oh, yeah, he must be telling the truth about the scale. I think that's a really good story, and it makes for good headlines, and people get to talk about him. Is he the champion? Is he not the champion? But at the end of the day, part of your job as a champ is to make weight. Okay, let's get into the actual fight. Fuck the scale. Is Charles dominant or is Charles lucky? Because from where I'm sitting right now, he has effectively cleaned out the division. And I know you're saying, Tyler, that's crazy. How could he clean out the division? He's only defended the belt technically one time, right? He won the undisputed belt or whatever against Dustin. And I mean, did he defend the belt because he didn't make weight? I don't know. I don't know what you do with that. But oh no, he defended the belt against Dustin. He won the belt against Chandler, and he sort of defended the belt against Gaethje, even though he didn't make weight. So however you want to look at that. Okay. Let's break that down though, because those are the three non-champ. I guess no one's a champ right now, but for all intents and purposes, because I'm going to keep flip-flopping. I think we're all confused about the status of Charles Oliveira right now. I'm just going to refer to him as the champ and everyone else as not the champ. Okay. The three big dogs in division, I think, are without question right now. Dustin Poirier, Charles beat him. Michael Chandler, Charles beat him, and Justin Gaethje, Charles beat him. I think there was an argument to be made for Tony Ferguson because of his history, because he only lost against guys that were interim champions, and really the poor guy has had murderer's row lately of fights. Okay. And I honestly think he brings a lot of things to the table that the other guys have not. If you look at Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, and Michael Chandler, those are wrestlers. Okay. Now, I say that word loosely. I mean, in their grappling style, if any of those three guys are on their back, you're not really too worried about them. You know, you're not really too worried about, Michael Chandler throwing up a triangle or from the bottom, or, Justin Gaethje going for an omoplata, or, one of these guys that has a really active guard. These guys are top domination, top position guys that like to wrestle, ground and pound. And by the way, all three of them, I say they're wrestlers, but they all like to stand up and strike, because all three of those guys can knock people out pretty easily. Excuse me. Tony brings another layer because he does have submissions. He has a sick jiu-jitsu game, and I think he would be more willing to, if he hurt Charles Oliveira, which by the way happens every single time Charles fights, to go down there with him, because hey, I know Charles is world class, but I think Tony Ferguson believes his jiu-jitsu is world class, and I have not seen anything that says he is not. Okay, he's very unconventional, Tony Ferguson, but he is very active guard. He does a lot of times I've seen him do more damage from the bottom than the guy on top of him in his guard, which tells you how dangerous he is everywhere on the ground. I've also seen Tony Ferguson have vicious ground and pound, and those elbows are lethal, man. He cut Michael Chandler open. So it kind of sucks that Tony lost, not because Michael Chandler didn't totally deserve it with that crazy. That's the craziest knockout I've ever seen. I've seen more athletic ones like back wheel kicks, thrown by like guys like Vitor against Bisping, or there's been a couple guys who throw wheel kicks. But as just far as like pure viciousness, man, that's right in there with the Jorge Masvidal flying knee to Ben Askren's face. Those are like the two most brutal flash, like just death after the strike lands knockouts I've ever seen. I mean, Francis Ngannou sleeps guys, but like we've all seen a guy sleep from a punch. Those two knockouts are standalone to me. So Chandler deserves everything, but what do you do now? Because Chandler just fought him this year, 2022. Michael Chandler lost to Charles Oliveira. He wisely called out Conor McGregor, and it's the second time he's done that in recent memory. He always calls out two guys. I noticed that about Chandler. He said when he won his first fight against Dan Hooker, he said, Khabib, if you will be willing to grace the octagon, blah, blah, blah. I didn't like it. It was kind of like dick riding stuff. But and then he threw in Conor McGregor. This time he threw it. He said, Charles Oliveira, let's run it back, or Conor McGregor, So he clearly wants that fight. Conor's finally open to it. So we'll see what the UFC decides to do, because all three of these guys, Poirier, Gaethje, and Chandler, have all lost to Oliveira. And that is a killer hit list of guys that Charles Oliveira has beat. That's why I say he, on paper, has effectively cleared out the division, because there's no other clear contender. Those are the only three guys that really have a legitimate gripe to get the title shot right now. I mean, you could look at guys like Dariush. You could look at Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz doesn't seem like he wants to fight at 155 anymore. He seems like he wants to call out 155ers and have them fight him at 170. Weird strategy, but, I don't question the Diaz way anymore. That guy's always making big splash headlines, headlining fights when they're non-title fights, and making hella money off of them. So I can't really question the method to the madness. There is a method there, and it seems like madness to me, but it works for him. He's the only guy that can do that. Maybe Conor McGregor, but he's the only guy that's moving up and calling out guys that are not in that division. It's just kind of weird to me, but hey, it works for him. Let's go back to Charles. Is he dominant or is he lucky? Because if you look at the three fights, right, those are the three big dogs in division. He beat them all. And, by the way, not just beat them all, finish them all. Okay? There's nothing left to the imagination. There's nothing left to the judges. There's nothing left to, he got robbed. This guy did more. He knocked all of them out. Excuse me. He submitted Dustin, and he submitted Justin Gaethje too, but I guess he hurt him real bad before that. But, he's finishing a dominant way to win. But that doesn't tell the whole story. If all you look at is the stat line, you say, oh, yeah, this guy's a killer. Charles Oliveira looks like the most human champion with this record he has this streak he has, if you will, going for him right now, which is almost contradictory because the guys he's beat are sick. Any one of these guys, I feel, on any given day could win the strap. That's how good these three guys are. But Charles has beat them, and you cannot take that away from him. The weird thing to me is Charles Oliveira has been dropped and hurt badly in every single fight. Justin Gaethje dropped him twice. Michael Chandler, I thought, knocked him out. And Dustin knocked him on his ass and was brutally ground and pounding him. And then maybe some funny stuff happened with the glove grab. Not legal, but hey, if the ref doesn't see it, play on. And he gets a sub. I just cannot believe. It's hard for me to call him dominant. To me, when I think dominant, I think Kamaru Usman. Okay, there's only one guy that really gives him a challenge, and the challenge is, hey, if this goes to the judges, I'm winning because I'm just a little bit better than you, Colby, at every single discipline. I'm just a little bit better. Like if you're a 95 rating, I'm a 97 everywhere. So you can hurt me, you can do whatever you want, but I'm going to come out on top. I'm going to find a way to do that. And everybody else, including Gilbert Burns, who did to his credit, hurt Usman in their fight, but it was for a split second, and Usman immediately took control of that fight. And then Khabib also comes to mind as a dominant recent champion. I mean, I know he's retired. I know he's not coming back. He's doing the Eagle FC thing. He looks huge now. There's no way he's making 155 anytime soon. I don't think he fights, and his dad is, rest in peace, gone, taken from us. So Khabib was dominant, never lost a round. Kamaru Usman's dominant. Cleared out the division 2 times over. They keep giving him Colby Covington. Colby keeps coming up just short. John Jones, dominant. The only fight that you can make an argument. There's 2 fights. There's the Reyes fight and the Gustafsson fight. The Reyes fight is when he came off of a zillion-year layoff. And the Gustafsson fight, we all know that dude was doing all kinds of drugs and God knows what else, staying up the night before, not just purely relying on genetics and athleticism at that point, you know. Greg Jackson even said John Jones didn't come in and train. So is Charles Oliveira finished? Because if you say, Tyler, how do you prove that you dominated a fight? I say you get a finish. Charles has done that. But usually when guys get a finish, it's very rare that they get a finish and they've been getting their ass beat the whole time. Charles clearly has a chin that can be exposed, and he also has a heart and cardio that now cannot be questioned. People questioned his heart before. Justin Gaethje said he's still the scared little boy that got knocked down, yada, yada, yada. It's not the case anymore, guys. He is a beast now. But I can't call him dominant because I honestly feel if he fights Dustin Poirier 10 times, he wins 5. If he fights Justin Gaethje 10 times, he wins 5. And if he fights Michael Chandler 10 times, he wins 5. It's a coin flip every time. He's just been landing on tails every time. So what do you do with that? That's very interesting. I don't know what the UFC is going to do now. I would assume they would give him Michael Chandler after that flashy knockout. But we're going to see. I mean, it's a really peculiar place. And honestly, this is the craziest thing right now. But like if they really wanted to, they could make him sit out for missing weight and give 2 other guys a chance at winning the vacant belt because it is vacant. And that could be interesting. Who wouldn't want to see another Michael Chandler versus Gaethje? Who wouldn't want to see another Gaethje versus Poirier? It's round robin. Any one of these guys, I feel, could be any one of these guys. I didn't feel that way when Khabib was champion. I felt like everyone was working their way up, stacking their wins in order to be fattened up for the slaughter. You know, cows to the slaughter. You've reached your opportunity to win a chip, and then Khabib does what he does to everybody else. He pushes you up against the cage, stifles you. I had a back and forth on Facebook today with a guy that says Charles Oliveira is a better champion than Khabib. More dominant, actually, is what he said, because he's a more well-rounded fighter. I don't know if I can argue that Khabib is more or less well-rounded than Charles. That might be true. But sometimes meat and potatoes gets it done. If you know that you're good at this one thing and the other person knows you're good at this one thing and they can't stop it, GSP comes to mind. Chael Sonnen comes to mind. Randy Couture comes to mind. Okay, these guys that are grinders that can get on top of you, stifle you, and not let you go anywhere. And Khabib did that to everyone. You've seen one Khabib fight, you've seen them all, really. I mean, there's nuance to it. I mean, sometimes he goes for submission. Sometimes he just stays on top and beats you. But you know what he's going to try to push you up against the fence. He's the all-time greatest leg rider, meaning he'll take a leg and he'll just stick with it. And his cardio and strength is so good that eventually you get tired of standing on your other leg, and then he pulls you into him and he slides you down up against the cage and he pins you in the corner. So you can't cage walk with your back and you can't sweep because one side is already taken away and he's angling to where you can't get out the other way. So now you're stuck between him, the cage, and the mat, mashed into the corner, taking a beating. Every fight. That's every Khabib fight. You've seen one, you've seen them all. That's dominance to me. Charles is an anomaly because the only other champion I can think of that looked very human and had a suspect chin was Michael Bisping. If you recall, Michael Bisping, the fight that got him to fight for the belt, where he won, and you can't say anything lucky or otherwise, against Luke Rockhold. because Luke looked really good at the time, was the Anderson Silva fight. And if you recall, Anderson knocked him out at the end of the round, got up on the side of the cage and started celebrating. They didn't call the fight. The round ends. His cornermen drag Michael Bisping's corpse into the corner. I don't know if they give him smelling salts or water or what. And he comes out like a bat out of hell and finishes the fight stronger because probably Anderson had an adrenaline dump and couldn't get back into the fight. He thought he won already. So, and then he gets to duck the entire division and not have to fight Yoel Romero or Gegard Mousasi at the time or any of the other top contenders. He just gets to pick out whoever he wants. So, of course, he picks out 80,000-year-old Dan Henderson to avenge one of the most brutal KO knockout losses of his career. And Dan knocks him on his ass several times in that fight. But Bisping just kept plugging away and kept working and won a majority decision, if I recall. That's the only other champion in history I can think of where, yeah, he defended the belt, but he did it while getting his ass kicked. And then we all know what happened once George St. Pierre fought Bisping. I digress. Back to Oliveira. Is he dominant? I don't think so. But his resume says he is. And the way he wins fights says his. It's so weird. I've never seen anything like it. UFC 274. Tony Ferguson looked like old Tony. He was outboxing Chandler. He was busting him open. He was throwing spinning stuff. He looked crazy athletic, crazy good. Michael Chandler throws something that he's never thrown on tape. There's no way they could have trained or planned for that in Tony's camp. The best front kick to the face I've ever seen. I've seen Anderson Silva do it, and I've seen Lyoto Machida do it. Those are the two that come to mind. But both those guys kind of brought it up and snapped it out. Whereas Michael Chandler just kind of swept his whole leg up and just snapped it at the very end. But it wasn't a push kick. It was literally like just a straight kick. And just got him right on the chin with the ball of his foot. Toes pointed towards the sky, barely missed his toes, got him with the ball of his foot, the hard part of his foot. Ugh. It was brutal. And he was losing that fight, make no mistake. Tony is a bad, bad dude. So all you crazy guys talking about, oh, he needs to retire. Listen, he's faced Murderer's Row. There's no shame in losing to guys like Michael Chandler, Justin Gaethje, okay? There's no shame in that. And don't forget, he was one knee injury away from being like this guy was ranked higher a couple of years ago than anybody else. We were supposed to see him fight Khabib like 100 times. It just, for whatever reason, the MMA gods didn't want it to happen. So I want to see Tony get a tune-up fight. Give this poor man a break. Stop feeding him these top of the division thugs that can beat up anybody on the planet, and give him a guy, give him a Cowboy Cerrone, give him I don't know, somebody with a name with some recognition that he can just go to town on. I just want to see old Tony back, man. And we saw a glimpse of it, but then Chandler took that away with that crazy head kick. That was the craziest thing I've ever seen. Okay? So let's get old Tony back. Let's get the confidence going, and let's get some momentum. Because one thing that's nobody wants to deal with is Tony Ferguson on a win streak with confidence in the press conference leading up to the fight. He's one of the best trash talkers in division, and that includes a division that has Conor McGregor in there. Tony and Nate and Conor are probably the three best trash talkers in that division, and they could sell a fight. Dana White privilege, dude, I almost peed myself from laughing so hard at that, okay? He could sell a fight. He could sell ice to an Eskimo. That guy is hilarious. But he can't really talk too much junk right now because, yeah, he's been knocked out several times in a row. By murderers, man. By murderers. So, it's hard to talk trash when you're on that kind of a losing streak. You kind of have to,
humble yourself, hang your head, and shut up, And then once you just need one win. He could fight someone's grandma and get a win, and then he could start talking trash again, because now he's won. He's back in the groove. We see Tony, and he's one of the most exciting fighters in division. So I want to see him come back. I think he's a major player, and I honestly think he's 2 wins away from being a legitimate title shot guy, because he's the only guy that hasn't fought Charles Oliveira in the very, very recent history. Okay, it's been a while. So what we need to do is get some momentum behind Tony, because Charles Oliveira beat all these other guys. The only guy left for him to fight is Conor, and Conor's not healthy, and Conor also says he likes being big and might not want to fight at 155 anymore. So that's something we have to take into consideration. If you're not going to fight at 155, you can't fight for that belt, and you won't fight Charles. So that's something to think about. That is kind of where we're at as far as Tony. I want to see him get one tune-up fight. Just give him a can. How come Sean O'Malley gets every can in the world and dominates, and meanwhile Tony Ferguson only gets the most brutal thugs in the whole division? It doesn't make sense to me. Give him a tune-up fight, and then once he gets his confidence back, like I said, the last thing any one of these guys wants to see is a confident, shit-talking Tony who's ready to kick some ass. Because he looked like he was back in this fight. He just got caught. And by the way, that shot Michael Chandler threw would have knocked anybody in division clean out the same way. Tony's chin isn't suspect. That was the perfect up kick. You couldn't draw it up better. Like if he had a punching bag with a target on it and it was in a practice room and got to throw that kick 100 times, he wouldn't have thrown one as good as he threw that night. It just, the stars sometimes align with these things. Guys get caught, okay? I'm going to just briefly talk about the other main event that was such a disappointment. What was it? I always forget her name. Carla Esparza? Yeah, Carla Esparza. Been in the division forever, been dominant forever, been hanging around the top 5 forever. Everyone knows the script on her. She wants to take you down, she wants to mangle you, and she wants to get you on the ground and pound. Okay? Very Chael Sonnen-esque, Ortiz-esque. Later on, GSP-esque type of fighter. She doesn't want to stand up and bang with guys, with ladies or girls, whatever. She wants to just do enough to get in close, take you down, and to her credit, once she takes most people down, she keeps them there. She couldn't keep Thug Rose on the canvas. But I'm going to be honest, guys. I thought Francis Ngannou versus Derek Lewis was the worst fight I've ever seen as far as inactivity goes. This was terrible. This was awful. I even in the press conference when Thug Rose seemed pissed and said, well, we executed the game plan. I felt like I was doing whatever I wanted in there, blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, you threw like 20 punches all fight long, and it was a 5-round fight. Okay? That doesn't even make sense. How is the game plan to do nothing? Okay? There are certain fighters that master the technique of being on their bike looking for the one shot, which is an acceptable tactic to me if you can pull it off. I'll give you an example. Lyoto Machida, the vast part of his career, he wasn't coming forward at guys. He was actually at 205 as a guy who could easily make 185 whenever he wanted to, so smaller guy in that division. So he knew the other guys were going to try to get in close and bully him and get their strength on him. But his bike was so good that he could take angles, run away, and he mastered the art of punching and kicking while moving backwards. So he would suck you in and then take an angle and boom, hit you with something that you didn't even see coming because he could just move so fantastically and beautifully. The same Wonderboy Thompson does the same thing. He's not as circular in his movements as Lyoto Machida, where he just runs around, but Thompson just stays out of range and has that very sideways loose stance where his hands are down here
and can pop in and out whenever he wants. He's so sideways, guys aren't used to training against guys like that. So he's a hard guy to train for, and he's a hard guy to catch. So what he does is he's always springing in and out, and you have to try to time it. So right when you come in, he usually springs out. And then when you miss your punch, that's when he springs in and hits you or kicks you. It's a similar thing, except for Lyoto Machida did it with angles, and I would say Wonder Boy does it with timing. But the thing is, when you employ that kind of game plan, unless you get a fantastic knockout, they are awful fights to watch a lot of times because they're looking for the one punch. They're not looking to fight. They're only looking to strike when they feel like it's safe for them to strike, and they employ that fight. Lucky for us, they have been so effective at that there's only been like the Rampage fight was a boring fight with Lyoto. Okay, he lost that fight, controversial loss, but Rampage was coming forward the whole time. What do you want? Okay, Wonder Boy versus Tyron Woodley. Talk about. I mean, the first fight there was action for like a split second. There was knockdowns on both sides, but most of the fight was neither guy touching each other. That was pretty hard to watch, but we forgave that and forgot about that because we got the highlights of knockdowns from both guys. The second time they fought was just pitiful. Okay, but there was still some leg kicks here and there. There was nothing in this fight. I think Carla got a takedown at one point, did nothing with it. And Rose, I don't know what she was doing. I have to criticize Rose, but I mostly also have to criticize her corner. Because for as great as her Pat Barry, who's her boyfriend / coach, has been for her because she's been a champion, right? I get why she would listen to everything he says because he's led her to victory. Okay, makes sense. But at some point, the greatest athletes know when it's time to turn it on. Know when, if the coach is talking about, all right, here's the clipboard, guys. We have this guy open. We're going to run a screen here, and sometimes that's great. But in the fourth quarter, when the money's on the line, try telling Kobe he's not going to take that shot. Kobe says, yeah, all right, cool. Give me that shot. I don't care if I'm triple team. I'm the man. I'm taking it. Sometimes as an athlete, you got to take your shot. This is it. You're the champ. It doesn't get any bigger than this. And you never took your shot. You never said, Coach, appreciate you, but fuck it, man. We're not landing any punches. We're not doing any damage. Her face is clean. And also, Thug Rose has not been that kind of a on her bike, run away, and counter-strike fighter. Her knockouts have been head kicks, engaging, staying in the pocket, trading blows. She's not a doesn't get touched fighter. She's a girl that has a really good chin, can take a shot, and also most of the time give a better shot than the ones she's taking. So for them to employ this game plan of her to get on her bike and just run away forever was a terrible game plan. I understand the logic behind it. It's a wrestler. Don't get in close so she can get a takedown. Okay. But there's other ways to beat wrestlers, guys. Here's a great way to beat a wrestler. Okay. Stay in the pocket and throw jabs. Don't throw leg kicks because they're waiting for a leg kick so they can grab your leg and take you down. Jab the hell out of her face the whole time and stay there close, and every now and then mix in an uppercut just so she thinks about it. Just so she has to think, man, if I shoot right now, I might eat that uppercut. Jabs and uppercuts and taking great angles allows you, if you want, to stay in the pocket. Okay? You don't have to run away from a wrestler. That doesn't, you don't, it's not the only way to beat them. I've seen it done, but also you have, if you're going to do it, you have to land big shots, not just a glancing blow here and there, or where you tangle up with each other for a second and throw some knees. You have to land big shots because people aren't going to want to watch you throw these winging punches that have like a 1% chance of landing all fight long because you're already out of range and you might get lucky and graze your opponent. That's exactly what she did. And I don't feel bad for her losing the belt at all. That was a terrible game plan. And she needs to have more confidence in her own ability and not rely so much on her corner. The corner guys can do people dirty. It's happened before. Anthony Smith versus Glover Teixeira comes to mind. Anthony Smith's guys, there was no crowd there, so they were literally playing Anthony Smith like Street Fighter. They were like jab, leg kick, boom, throw a knee, do this, do that. And by the second round, he was burnt out. He was done. He was gassed. It was over. Because they depleted the man's cardio. He's a 205er. He can't just be throwing a crazy clip like, 100 shots around. Anthony Smith can knock guys out. Why are you telling him to be cardio king and trying to do a Diaz technique where he's throwing everything and he listened to them and he lost that fight brutally, by the way. You need to know, hey, listen, I know the thought and I appreciate what you guys are trying to do with this game plan, but I also know what works for me. And what I've seen work for Thug Rose is head kicks, aggressive striking, staying in the pocket, being active, and then getting in and out. Not staying in the pocket the whole time, but, picking your spots, getting in and doing damage, and then getting out. And she could have done that. We've seen it done before, a million times over. You don't only have to get on your bike to beat a wrestler. There's other ways. And on top of that, what's more frustrating than anything, okay, John Jones beat DC twice. Say what you want about what he was on and if he was cheating, whatever. But he beat DC twice. There's not a wrestler in the history of the 205 division better than DC. And John Jones didn't beat him with wrestling. He didn't beat him by running away. He was the longer fighter, and he used long punches, long oblique kicks that he timed very well to make sure DC wasn't able to grab a leg and take him down, and getting in and out. And eventually he knocked him out, right? Look at Carla Esparza in that fight, and look at Rose. Rose is like a full 8 inches taller, okay, and has crazy reach on her. She could have jabbed. She could have jabbed an uppercut, and then if she hurt her, then she, explode. Okay? She could have done the technical thing like Izzy did, where at least she would land 3-4 good shots around and keep running. She didn't land. I think she landed one good hook all fight long, is what I saw. That fight was impossible to watch. I don't feel like I want to see a rematch. I know she deserves it because she's been a great champion, but I don't want to see a rematch. That's terrible. And her corner said, see these people booing? You hear these people booing? That means we're doing a good job. They lied to her, okay? It's not your job as a fighter when you get to a certain point to entertain the people. The sport is entertainment, but if you're at the top of the food chain, your only job is to win fights. Okay? But if people are booing because nothing is happening, how can you expect to win a fight? Nothing is going on. You are boring everyone to death. People cheered when Carla Esparza shot a double leg and got her on the ground for like a half second, and then she scrambled back to her feet because they're like, oh, thank God there's a heartbeat in here. They were just looking at each other the whole time. At least Carla Esparza was trying to go forward. The poor girl is like 4'8", okay? A tiny little meatball of a woman, okay? So she's obviously not going to be throwing crazy long strikes everywhere. She's trying to get in close, which to me gives Paige the strike. Which gives, her the striking, Rose the striking advantage. Why not use that? People love striking. People love knockouts. People won't mind if you just jab and do quick leg kicks all fight long like GSP if you want. People won't boo that. They just want to see something. You gave the people nothing. You gave them nothing. Thank God Michael Chandler had the greatest knockout of all time that night. Thank God Charles Oliveira versus Gaethje was a really, really entertaining 1-round fight. Thank God. Because that was absolute garbage. I don't know if I want to. I definitely don't want to see them co-headline anything. If they're a throw-in belt fight, great. But you don't get to headline or co-headline, either one of you. I don't want to see it. Maybe if Rose gets the belt back and gets to fight somebody exciting like Weili or Joanna again, but I don't want to see this fight again. Esparza needs to lose, and then Rose can fight whoever she loses to, because I cannot watch that again. That was awful. And I'm not convinced with how the press conference went afterwards that the next fight around she would change anything. She felt she was happy with her performance, and she felt she won the fight handedly. The only person, nobody won that fight. It was all losers in there. Somebody got the belt, sure, but somebody had to get the belt. But the only loser in that fight was the fans watching. Okay, both of you guys did nothing to deserve that belt, but it was kind of like, hey, we both showed up for this job interview, and we both suck, but nobody else showed up, so somebody has to get the job. I mean, that's one way to get a job, I guess. But damn, you didn't bring your resume? You showed up in sweats? The other person showed up in basketball shorts? You're both scratching your balls right now? God, I don't even want to give this job out, but I need somebody to take it today. That's kind of what happened, man. It sucked. That was the worst fight in MMA history. And if anyone has this fight, don't even bother, because I'm not going to watch it. If you have a fight that's even close to how bad that one was, there's no chance in hell I'm watching it. No chance. So that's it, man. Garage Goons, episode 18. Stay tuned. We're going to do hip-hop lists. People keep flaking as far as guests showing up. I know you guys get tired of hearing that. I'm going to start being really annoying. People say they're going to show up, then they don't. Hey, man, I'm going to get on Facebook, Instagram, text, whatever I got to do. Show up at your work. Whatever I got to do, man. Let's get the show off the ground, man. I love being the most trash show on YouTube, but hey, with Garage Goons being the most trash show on YouTube, think about this. Words of wisdom. One man's trash is another man's treasure. Garage Goons, episode 18, most trash show on YouTube. Share this everywhere. Like it, stream it, follow it, subscribe, all that stuff. You want to be a Garage Goon, you want to be a guest, reach out to me. We'll do an interview. Got a cool story? We'll do an interview. You want to talk some sports? You want to talk some football? You want to talk some basketball? You want to talk boxing, UFC? We can do that. Hit me up. Garage Goons episode 18.